For You Télévision est également disponible sur les bouquets créés au Linktree comme Star Times, sur nos différentes plateformes numériques et sur l'application For You Media, téléchargeable sur Play Store. En bonus, profitez de la pertinence de nos sujets d'actualité et de l'interactivité de toutes nos émissions. Participez par appel WhatsApp au +237 693 589 668. Sur Skype, For You TV. For You Télévision, votre nouvelle chaîne panafricaine qui vous offre une autre vision du monde.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to the 6 p.m. primetime newscast over For You Television with me, Jix Nabisi, for presentation. To open today's newscast, we kick off with Senegal, where results of the Senegalese legislative elections that took place on Sunday, July 31st, 2022 are expected to be released today, Monday, the 1st of August, 2022. In the following report compared to us by Moni Manu, she recounts how the elections went.
Results are expected this Monday as Senegal counted votes on Sunday from a legislative election that saw President Macky Sall's ruling party face an opposition energized by food price hikes and fears Sall could run for a controversial third term in 2024. Around 7 million voters were eligible, but turnout appeared to be low at only 22% around midday. The political backdrop of the country of 17.5 million, considered among West Africa's most stable democracies, has become increasingly acrimonious, fueled in part by Sall's refusal to rule out breaching term limits. 60-year-old Sall swept to power in 2012, removing Wade, and was elected again in 2019. He was campaigned on big-ticket construction projects such as a high-speed train line and a conference center, as well as oil and gas production. His opponents have seized on growing frustrations with economic hardship caused by the coronavirus pandemic and rising fuel and food prices. Senegal adopted constitutional revisions which, among other things, reduced presidential terms from 7 years in 2016. Sall has declined to comment on his intentions for 2024.
We'll now take you to Morocco, where the president, or the king of the North African country, King Mohammed VI, has reached out to Algeria for reconciliation between both countries after the relations have been strained for several months over the disputed territory of the Western Sahara. Mwanze Joyogo tells us more.
For his 23rd anniversary as King of Morocco, Mohammed VI has reached out for reconciliation with neighboring Algeria. Relations between the two countries have been strained for several months over the disputed territory of Western Sahara. According to the Alawite king, the borders that separate the Moroccan and Algerian people will never be barriers that prevent their interaction and understanding. Rabat has been putting forward a broad autonomy plan under Moroccan sovereignty, supported by many countries but rejected by Algiers backing the separatist Polisario Front. In his address, Mohammed VI asked Moroccans to preserve the spirit of fraternity, solidarity and good neighborliness towards Algeria, calling out individuals who sow hatred between the two countries. Last year, the king had already chosen to address a message of peace to its neighbor, an unsuccessful attempt as in August, Algeria cut diplomatic ties with Morocco, accusing it of hostile actions.
On to politics and our political write-up today. Our reporter Takewana laments on African heads of state on how short-sighted they have been after independence, on realizing the potential the African continent is endowed with. This is his report.
It is not an issue of food insecurity, health evacuation to Europe, and illegal immigration to Europe. Africa has become famous on the global scene. Pathetic it is that after practically more than a decade of independence, all African countries are still depending on Western powers for survival, and the situation is even getting worse each passing day. The Ukraine-Russian conflict was just a tip of an iceberg as prices of basic commodities in our local market witnessed drastic increase, as if to say the world has been surviving thanks to Ukraine and Russia, as Africans cried foul. In case line was spotted in Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, Somalia, and many others, as the populations on several occasions took to the street to express their frustrations. What a shame as Africans. Oh yes, is it that we are too blind to realize the potential our continent is endowed with? Or greed and corruption are more important than the well-being of our beloved continent? A shame indeed to us all, as instead of channeling every meaningful energy and resources towards making our continent a paradise on earth, as Europe, we rather derive delight fighting and killing ourselves. If not so, how did we get here? With the existence of several rebel groups like Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, and you name the rest. Nevertheless, what does the Western world have that is of no existence in Africa? Perhaps they may want to hang on the technology, but permit me remind them that without our raw materials, all that they work for shall be meaningless. Regretting to state here that most African leaders have been short-sighted to understand that a new breed of Africans are coming up with mind-blowing talents, which, if well guided, Africa would definitely become a new paradise on earth. For sure, an Africa where there exists plenty to eat for all, befitting health infrastructures, good transport network, convincing educational system, corruption, as well as debt stress-free are some of the dreams Africans wish to wake up one day and see. Is it possible? They ponder, and the response is, oh yes, it is possible. The day our African leaders shall learn to accept to flip a new page unanimously. Before that comes to play, you and I, as sons and daughters of this great continent, have got the power to make this change we are all clamoring for it to come to reality by contributing our own little quarter wherever we find ourselves in the society, as job creators and not as job seekers. Did I say anything?
Thank you, Takewana, for that in-depth report on the African continent. We stay on the African continent, where top U.S. diplomats will, in the days ahead, visit some African countries. This trip was notified just 2 days after Antony Blinken's Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, completed his African tour in 4 countries. Mwanze Joyogo once more.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will travel to South Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda between the 7th and 11th of August 2022. This trip was notified on July 29th, just 2 days after Blinken's Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, completed his African tour in 4 countries, Egypt, Congo, Uganda, and Ethiopia. This stands as one of the numerous signs of the battle of influence ongoing between the Western and Russian sides amid the war in Ukraine and a food crisis. In the very same week, the U.S. also said another top diplomat, President Biden's ambassador to the United Nations, Thomas Greenfield, would visit Ghana and Uganda on August 4th. During his trip to the African continent, Lavrov rejected accusations that Russia is to blame for the high and fluctuating prices of commodities in the world, but instead blamed the West for monopolizing commodity and supply flows during the pandemic, saying it worsened the situation for food imports. The Russian foreign minister also added that the sanctions imposed to his country is not a solution to the present crisis the globe faces. With these visits, Washington hopes to score some points with the African continent. A tough bet, as many African nations have refused to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine, with 25 of Africa's 54 states abstained from a vote to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine during the UN General Assembly in March.
In a bid to revive the Zambian economy, the government will soon assess a $1.3 billion IMF support fund. The bailout was validated just after the Southern African nation's creditors agreed to provide debt relief. The details are in the following report.
In the days of old, when the former President Edgar Lungu's Zambia had seen a dying economy, then came incumbent President Hakainde Hichilema with his vision of rejuvenating the economy. Over a year gone, we are still here. In a bid to revive the economy, Zambia would soon assess a $1.3 billion IMF support fund. The bailout was validated just after the Southern African nation's creditors
agreed to provide it with debt relief. The Committee of Creditors, co-chaired by China and France, announced over the weekend they were ready to negotiate the restructuration of Lusaka's crushing debt load. IMF's support plan had been signed in December 2021, but was suspended until the go-ahead was given. Kristalina Georgieva, the IMF's managing director, expressed that she was very pleased the fund would be unlocked. According to Zambian's finance minister Sisumbeko Mosokwane, he is confident his country will get the economy back on a sustainable growth trajectory. Zambia was the first African country to interrupt payment on the $17.3 billion foreign debt at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. In the last 10 years, China has been the country's biggest creditor, lending it an estimated $6 billion of loans. A financial boost meant to help the country drive ambitious infrastructure projects such as roads and airports. Zambia still has to negotiate the terms of the relief and reach a similar deal with private creditors. As of now, fingers remain crossed to see the outcome of this aid on this Southern African nation.
We now take you to Egypt, where Egypt has categorically rejected the country's unilateral filling of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, JED, in a letter to the United Nations Security Council. According to the country's Foreign Minister Shukri Samia, Egyptian states will not tolerate any violations of rights against water security. The details are with you, Moni Manu.
Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry submitted a letter to the President of the United Nations Security Council on Friday to register Egypt's categorical rejection of Ethiopia's continuation of filling the Mega Nile Dam unilaterally without an agreement with Egypt and Sudan on the dam's filling and operation. The letter stressed that this is a clear violation of the 2015 Declaration of Principles Agreement and a serious violation of the applicable rules of international law, which obliges Ethiopia as an upstream country not to harm the rights of downstream countries. The spokesman of the Egyptian Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated that Egypt had received a letter from the Ethiopian side on July 26, stating that Ethiopia will continue to fill the Nile Dam reservoir during the current flood season, a measure that Egypt rejects and considers contrary to the obligations imposed by the international law on Ethiopia. The foreign minister pointed out that Egypt has sought during the negotiations that have taken place over the past years to reach a fair and equitable agreement on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. But Ethiopia has failed all efforts and endeavors that have been made to resolve this crisis. The Egyptian foreign minister stressed that while Egypt adheres to the need to reach an agreement on the JED that meets the common interests of the three countries, the Egyptian state will not tolerate any violation of its rights or water security or any threat to the capabilities of the Egyptian people, for whom the Nile River is the only lifeline.
Now on to Russian-Ukrainian grain transactions. The first ship carrying grain has left a Ukrainian port under a landmark deal with Russia. Turkish and Ukrainian officials say the ship left the southern port of Odessa early this Monday, August 1st. The details are with you, Futso.
Russia has been blockading Ukrainian ports since February, but the two sides agree a deal to resume shipments. It is hoped the deal will ease the global food crisis and lower the price of grain. In a statement issued ahead from the ship's departure, Turkey said the Sierra Leone flagged vessel would dock in Lebanon, adding that further shipments were planned over the coming weeks. The Joint Coordination Center in Istanbul, set up under this deal, said the ship was carrying some 26,000 tons of corn and was expected to arrive in Turkish waters for inspection on Tuesday, August 2nd. Unlocking ports will provide at least $1 billion in foreign exchange revenue to the economy and an opportunity for the agricultural sector to plan for the next year, said Ukraine's Infrastructure Minister Alexander Kubakov. He also added that 16 other ships were waiting to depart in the port of Odessa region in the coming weeks. Last month's deal took 2 months to reach and it is set to last for 120 days. It can be renewed if both parties agree.
Thank you, Mansley Fortso, for that report. Ladies and gentlemen, that report on the Russian-Ukrainian grain transaction puts a stop to this 6 p.m. primetime newscast over 4U television. I have been Jix Nabise for presentation. As you follow our programs, God bless Africa.